Good morning, everybody. Today is September the 9th, and it's welcome to the joint meeting of the Council of the Township of Addington Highlands and the Township of North Frontenac. It's a pleasure to be with you. We have Reeve Hogg from Addington Highlands on a virtual connection. And the way this is going to be set up is there are essentially two separate councils here. So some of the resolutions, if we have them, will have to be done both by North Frontenac for the North Frontenac councilors, and again for Addington Highlands for the Addington Highlands council, because one council can't supersede another council's decision. So before we get started, Reeve Hogg is going to be the chair for Addington Highlands, and I'll be the chair for North Frontenac. So let's begin. Please be advised, North Frontenac council meetings are recorded. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Members of council, staff, delegates, and attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior or comments. We also include a traditional land acknowledgement. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the First Peoples and their ancestors, who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the Township of North Frontenac is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Item 3, approval of the agenda. Sarah?
Moved by Councillor Hudel, second by Deputy Mayor Ingalls. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda for the joint meeting of council with the Township of Addington Highlands dated September 9th, 2024 as circulated.
So North Frontenac, all those in favor? That motion's carried. Reeve Hogg?
Township of Addington Highlands has a procedural bylaw that states that all votes during electronic meetings shall be recorded votes. So I will call out for each member of council. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Hook?
Yes.
Councillor Yance? Councillor Yance present?
Yes.
So that motion is carried.
Okay. Thank you. Item 4, new business. The topics that are included here are a combination of wish lists by both townships. And the hardest part of getting us was trying to get us all together, and we've almost got it, not quite, but we're close. So the first item is waste management. How do we want to do this? Darwin, do you want to? I'm going to do this or?
Morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So as you know, we share the Cloyne site, and it's a pretty unique arrangement. The sites since COVID have got busier and busier, and Cloyne's no exception. On a weekend now, busy day, they're seeing about 100 cars a day, which is pretty significant volume. It's a little difficult to just manage the flow there because of the two streams. So we share blue box, but we have two separate bins for garbage for waste. So I think it works quite well. Just if we find from our end it's a bit more difficult for the attendants to manage, and they struggle or find it a challenge to explain the rules and the requirements from the two different municipalities sometimes to the residents, depending on where they're from. But otherwise, I would say it works well.
Anybody have comments? Both councils? Darwin?
If I could add a suggestion from our end, and we've considered this for a while. We currently 2 attendants, used to be by exception, but now it's pretty well every shift. At some point, I'd like to suggest that if we both had one representative there instead of 2 from here, and I think it might help and work better with an Addington Highlands attendant, dealing with and explaining requirements to Addington Highlands residents. That's just a suggestion from my end.
Councilor Hoodle?
Just wondering, are there different rules between the two townships regarding either the recycling or waste disposal?
There were some differences. I think they're pretty much similar now. I think we had an issue earlier in the season, and it might have just been a misunderstanding about the our process where a bag of recycling gets you a bag of waste without a tag, and then you're switching to bag tag. So yeah, once you're away from bags, everybody's on tags, and that'll be simpler. And I think you're following the same requirement now. Yeah. So that has helped. That was contentious earlier in the season. It generated a lot of discussion at the sites.
Councilor Fowler?
Yeah, regarding bag tags, so would that eventually affect North Frontenac? Would we have to go to that plan for the whole township, or would it be just that site, or just our waste would be continuing the way it is?
Ours would be continuing the way with Addington Highlands transitioning away from bags to tags, then we'll be the same. We're using tags, and Addington Highlands will be using tags, so it'll be the same approach.
Councilor Foot?
I use I live on Scudamanna Lake, and I use the coin site a lot, and I know Gary Thompson and Tim Neal, the wayside attendants there, and they mentioned in the past that there was some difficulty when an Addington Highlands resident had problems with some of the rules, but I think they handle it very well. They explained it to me, and that was just a rare occasion, and I think they actually handle it very well. And if Addington Highlands put an employee in there, that would be, I guess we would have to rework our schedule for that, but would it not also mean that North Frontenac employees would have less work? So, I mean, if it's a shared cost, I guess it's in the end, and if they're doing a good job, and I think they are, I think the odd case, I mean, we have an odd case at every waste site, that they seem to be very adept at ironing out these problems. And as I say, I've been in there a lot, and they do a great job. So.
My issue is if we put an Addington Highlands staff member who's union with a North Frontenac, which is non-union, is that a potential for a future conflict? So would it be if we can't resolve this over the next whatever time, maybe it would work out to say this is Addington Highlands Day and this is North Frontenac's Day, and just divide the two up. But what I'm beginning to hear is that most of these issues have been resolved, and it seems to be working out. Darwin?
Mr. Mayor, Brett mentioned that as well, union, non-union, plus another other issue with constructor type issues. If you have 2 employees on site with different employers, but so those two issues would have to be reviewed if we proceeded with it. I think to address the concerns that we had in the spring too, we remind the attendants, they don't have to debate. You can explain the requirements, but you don't have to debate them with residents. The attendants don't make the rules, and they're just enforcing them. And my card's there, they can always refer people either to Addington Highlands office or our office if the resident has unresolved concerns. So
Councilor Huck, I'd like to thank you for your Facebook post earlier this year on use of the wayside. It was really done well, and put everything in perspective for everybody. So does this tie into the blue box, or is this all, like all these four subtitles, are they all with one item? Or are they separate items under one topic? What was the intent here? Darwin?
I had the blue box as a separate item really, and it's just more of an update with the pending blue box transition with circular materials.
So before we do that, can we leave the Coin Waste Site shared service as it is right now? And if it doesn't work out, then we can bring it all back. Is that good with both councils? Reeve Hogg, you okay with that?
Yes,
Okay. All right, Darwin, you're on blue box. All right, you want to go first? All right.
Yeah, I know this isn't a regular council meeting, but I'm not going to comment on this because of my conflict of interest with the Blue Box program, so I'll just listen.
Thank you. Ellie?
If I can just encourage anyone using the microphone just to be close to it, I think Reeve Hogg may be having issues hearing, and it's just because sometimes if you're too far from the microphone, so if everyone, when you're using the microphone, just make sure it's up nice and close. Thank you.
yeah, that's correct. I am having trouble hearing.
Okay. We'll speak up, Henry. Okay, Darwin?
So the blue box item was really just an update with the transition to producer responsibility for blue box items. The so post transition in 2026, circular materials will be responsible for all of the blue box items, recyclable items at Coin, and I think that's fairly straightforward. During the transition, there's blue box items that are eligible and that circular materials will manage, and there are items and users that are considered ineligible. Basically anything that's commercial in accordance with the regulation, they're not considered eligible to use the blue box program, or circular materials don't have to be responsible for it. So I think both of us right now are in process of negotiating with circular materials during the 2025. They will be charging both the municipalities for the non-eligible quantities for blue box. So we don't currently track. We collect waste separately, but the blue box, we don't really track blue box quantities from Addington Highlands or North Frontenac currently. So we're in the process of having to negotiate something with circular materials on how they'll split it and bill each of us, for that non-eligible material. I think we probably propose, because we don't track the quantities, but we do track number of vehicles. So probably suggest that we just proportion it based on number of vehicles. Post transition, in North Front, we haven't decided yet how we're going to handle non-eligible items. And there's a range of options from just not accepting them from non-eligible sources through to accepting them, but charging through to accepting them with no charge. So I know for North Frontenac, I haven't brought it to council yet, and we don't have direction or haven't decided just how we're going to handle non-eligible sources. And I don't know if North Addington have, but so again, depending on, we'll have to work together and come up with some means to collect or manage non-eligible sources at the waste site for starting 2026.
Any questions? Comments?
And we haven't settled that either.
Yes, sir, Brett.
Yeah, I guess just to clarify a little bit what Darwin was saying about the non-eligible sources. So that's not just businesses, that's the municipal buildings, that's churches. There's some stuff that's pretty I guess pretty they use it's very loose term for non-eligible sources. So it's not just businesses, there's other community members and that will be affected by it. So, and obviously when we take it to our council, there'll be more details presented that way, but that's some of the other non-business type users that might be affected. So.
Okay, so that's information to come for both councils. Hazardous waste?
Again, we share the hazardous waste depot at 506. I think that's been working really well. We haven't had issues with that. I think it was on here, but I think we've addressed it probably under the blue box item. Again, it's busier and busier every year, and we have to staff it now with the person licensed to handle hazardous and an assistant. And it was similar to blue box. I was going to suggest that adding, especially on Saturdays, Addington Highlands could provide an attendant and we'd provide one, but I think it's the same situation as the blue box, so we'll manage it accordingly.
So this is to North Frontenac Council. Does this suggest to you that we should have an internal discussion among us and then make a proposal to Addington Highlands? Must be good.
I really don't think we need to do that. We'll leave it to Darwin and his counterpart Brett to keep us informed is what we need to do. If we have to have something, then yes, but I think Darwin's handling it very well.
So you're saying business as usual until problems develop. Anybody else? Okay,
Seems to work good as far as I got heard.
here's me, Reeve Hogg.
Say it seems to work well as far as I've heard.
Okay. Thank you, Henry. What about do not litter signs?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could speak to this, earlier in the year, Earth Day happened and we had the Land O'Lakes Garden Club, the Lions were involved, other community organizations, and it was a big success. There was a lot of garbage picked up on roads in both townships. And in particular around the Cloyne waste site, which is a shared site, I know there was 4 truckloads of garbage picked up on that little stretch of road between the Cloyne waste site and Highway 41. So we were thinking, what if we came up as a joint project between the 2 townships, a joint sign that just reminded residents, visitors that littering is a problem and everybody can do their part by keeping their garbage in their car. And we did a mock-up sign of just says, help us keep beautiful, please don't litter, with the 2 township logos on. And just thought that this could be a fairly inexpensive project that we could put up signage on some strategic places like 506 on Scoodamatta Lake Road. I'm sure there's other roads which our waste site superintendents know where there's garbage is a problem, and just kind of thought we'd mention it and see if we could do something together. Apologies, that logo on the bottom is your old logo. The new one looks would have to be updated, of course.
Forgive you, Ken. Are there any comments? Councillor Fowler?
Yes, regarding people dropping waste on the side of the road. I'm not sure, do we have a bylaw for that, Sarah? Yeah, so it is something that can be enforced through a bylaw officer in a complaint.
Yeah, I think that's doable, but at what cost? Councillor Regent, do you have something?
No, I was just gonna say, I'm in favor of a sign. The problem is no one pays attention to them. And then who's going to enforce it? We have enough trouble finding bylaw officers to enforce things that are actually quite serious. So I love Ken's idea, but I'm not sure anyone's gonna pay attention to it. People drop litter all over the place, they right in front of the store even, they walk back into me. So I'm not sure spending money on signs is gonna do us any good. This is probably a bylaw issue. That's a bigger problem.
Well, I think in the past we've had signs with a gavel and a penalty signs. I mean, we know that's almost impossible to enforce. Roadside litter is not, you're not gonna really catch somebody throwing a bottle over. It's just to remind people that we're trying our best to keep the area beautiful and they can do their part to help. This is a beautiful area for visitors and residents. And yeah, it's not a heavy-handed sign. It's just the opposite.
Counselor Thompson.
Yeah, I like the idea, and I think, of course, we're not gonna get everybody to agree with the signs, but I mean, even if you get 40% of the people that are doing litter, it helps. Like, I mean, I just think it'll help, just help remind people that maybe I shouldn't throw it out today, I just think it's a good idea.
Counselor Fowler.
Yes, sir. Regarding people when they pick up the litter, if it's if they inspect it, sometimes there's people's names left behind on items. And I know a bylaw officer down in Brockville, and that's what he does. He'll go through and he'll find the names and he'll track them down and charge them accordingly. So it's not impossible.
Wasn't there a song written about that in the early 70s? Remember that well. It's exactly what it was, eh? Counselor Hoodle.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, the cost of these signs are very small. You can put them on a few areas. I mean, I don't know about the coin what waste site, but I know on Buckshot Road, a lot of that's just from the wind blowing the stuff out of the dump, and they do a pretty good job of, cleaning up that area. But I agree, the signs are important. It's a little bit more about education too, right? So it's a soft way of just reminding people. It's nothing worse. I see Tim Hortons cups on Buckshot Lake Road. Why people throw it out the window, I have no idea, but that's a good idea.
So how do we want to leave this? Bring this back to the separate councils, do a resolution today? What would you like? Counselor Good.
I'm willing to do it today myself, if everybody else is. I'm in agreement on the signs.
Anybody, we have a seconder for that? Counselor Ingles, okay. We need a resolution.
Sorry.
Counselor Good.
Can Addington Highlands be doing theirs too? We're
I can't hear you.
just suggesting that Addington Highlands, if they want to go ahead with this bylaw too, or this signage to go ahead with it now too.
Is there a mover and a seconder?
I'll move it, Reeve Todd.
Moved by Counselor Hook. Is there a seconder?
So before we go any further, is this a North Frontenac cost? If it's within North Frontenac and it was the
Okay, go ahead.
Addington Highlands cost. Yeah. Okay, one dump they use and we have the others. Okay, Tara. So
Moved by Counselor Good, seconded by Deputy Mayor Ingles. Be it resolved that council instructs the Public Works Manager to work with Addington Highlands Manager of Roads and Waste to have signs installed along roadways to discourage littering and report back with a proposal.
So North Frontenac, any further discussion? In favor of the resolution? That motion's carried.
Moved by Counselor Hook, seconded by Counselor Thompson, that it be resolved that council instructs the manager of roads and waste to work with the North Frontenac Public Works Manager to have signs installed along roadways to discourage littering and report back to council with a proposal.
Any further questions or comments? Ready for the vote? Counselor Thompson,
Yes.
Counselor Hook,
Yes.
Counselor Yance.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
The next item is mandatory septic inspections. Whose item is this? This ours or the? It's ours? Well, I'm not sure where it came from, but I'm gathering it's like, what is Addington Highlands doing? We essentially have been talking about it. We have an environmental task force.
Can't hear you again.
Sorry, Henry. It must simply be, what is Addington Highlands doing? And what is North Frontenac doing? Are you moving on this at all, or where does it stand?
Right now, we're not doing any inspections. We talked to our former septic approval, and they didn't recommend anything more than education. And currently, we're doing septic inspections ourselves, and we're basically staying that course.
So we have, as North Frontenac, we have about a $6,000 budget item. We hire Rito Septic. Is that correct, Corey? That's the company. We send out about 500 or 600 letters telling them we'll inspect the septic systems if they meet these criteria, and we'll do it free of charge. In that is a little corollary that says if your system fails, you have to replace it. Other than that, you just agree to fix it and you're good to go. Out of that 569 letters last year, we got like 35 responses and ended up with about 10 or 14 eligible systems, and 2 or 3 of those had needed some kind of work. We've done this for several years. We're not getting a great response, so it's better than nothing, but not a lot. Central Frontenac has one. One of their counselors keeps saying that their system is great and North Frontenac system doesn't work. Okay. And we meet with lake associations and ask them what they think. And almost like there's 50 people in the audience, 50 people put their hand up and say, we want this. But send them a letter saying, we'll come in and do it for free. No one wants it. So we're kind of in the middle here, and it's just sort of an item in discussion for us. So, but we do have an environmental task force, and maybe they'll come up with something. Councillor Fowler.
This, one of the ways that you could enforce something like this would be when the property changes hands, and if there is a septic system, the seller would have to ensure that the septic system is in working order. And a lot of people do this anyway when they buy a property. They make that as one of the conditions. So that's one way that we might be able to do it. And it might not get everybody, like somebody that's been living in the land and not live or on the property and never leave it.
Councillor Ingles.
I think we have an opportunity here. We've got 2 councils around the table. My impression of this meeting was that it was not so much to pass joint resolutions, but to have just free and open discussions. I'd like to know how other councilors in the neighboring townships feel. Personally, I think I've spoken in the past about wanting a limited mandatory septic inspection system around certain lakes. The issue is, it's not so much when property changes hands, there's a whole bunch of money available. So it's fairly straightforward for somebody to invest $20,000 or $30,000 in a new septic system. The issue is very old systems where there's not a whole lot of money in the family. It's hard to measure the effect on lakes. By the time you measure phosphorus levels in water, it's too late. I think we should be more proactive. So we would have to come up with a system which helps people pay for failed systems. And the only thing I can think of initially is putting something on the tax basis and financing it over 20 or 30 years. We have yet to come up with a plan. Maybe this new environmental task force we have will come up with a detailed plan to present to council. But I think in the coming years, if we don't do it, it's going to be imposed on us by the province.
So I agree with a lot of the items that John just talked about. I'm not sure about township paying for a septic system that's failed. I mean, roofs fail too. We don't pay for the roofs to be reshingled. But anyway, this is something. So for Addington Highlands Council in North Frontenac, we have an environmental task force. I'm the chair of that task force. And this is one of the items that was brought up in our first meeting last week that we will be looking at it. We don't have the answers yet. This is going to be a long discussion on how we do it. I'm also the rep on the Committee of Adjustment, and there was talk of that committee also somehow enforcing some mandatory septic inspections during building permits or sale, as Councillor Fowler said. So it's a big topic, and it will take a little while for us to discuss how we're going to come up with a plan of what we're going to do. My concern is on some of the lakes we share, Buckshot Lake being an example. You know, if North Frontenac passes a resolution that mandates mandatory septic inspection, we have 20 houses on there that are Addington Highlands. And, you know, I'm going to hear it from the other side. Well, why aren't they, you know, having to do it? So that'll be something we'll have to look at in the future, at what we do with shared lakes. So those are my comments.
Well, I certainly would be in favor of mandatory septic and reinspection, and certainly working with North Frontenac so that there's a similar program, because it's just not Buckshot Lake, but Mazenod Lake has the same problem. And this problem could potentially be entering into another problem that we have later in the agenda with the milfoil, where someone's septic system is leaking, adding phosphorus and so forth in the lake, and it could contribute to the growth of milfoil, which adds to another problem. But I would certainly be in favor of it. And unfortunately, the ones that are willing to have a voluntary reinspection are probably not the worst offenders. It's the ones that knowingly they have maybe the 45-gallon drum septic system. They're the offenders, and they're not going to come forward and ask for it. So
And odds are they're on an island somewhere. Councillor Good.
Just to furthermore what Councillor Hurdle was talking about, we already have that problem of South or Central Frontenac and us, Big Gull Lake, for example. Part of that's in Central, part of it's on us. And so far, I've heard no repercussions back on that.
I attended the Big Gull Lake Association's AGM up in the East End, and there was maybe 80 or 100 people there, and they were all in favor of this. So we maybe have to rethink how we're doing our volunteer system. Maybe we can target it better. But right now, the way it's working, we spend $5,500 a year out of our $6,000 budget, and we probably pick up 2 or 3 systems. It's a lot of work for minimal results, but 2 or 3 systems is better than no systems. So that's where North Frontenac is. Can we just commit to working together on this as we go forward and keeping each other informed? Does that work for everybody? Okay. I didn't hear any objections, so I don't think it's worth the resolution or whatever. Henry, are you good with that?
Yeah, I think we'll continue to monitor what you guys are doing, and what we're going to do ourselves, with our in-house inspections. I just don't think we've got the manpower to get into a mandatory re-inspection right now.
I believe that Central Frontenac's cost is somewhere around $400 an inspection. But I'm not sure how accurate that is, so. But that would be billed to the homeowner. Councilor Hoodle?
I mean, you made a good point too, right? You know, we should start develop a program, some type of program, because before the province tells us we have to, because there are many, many municipalities in Ontario that have mandatory septic inspections. So I think it'd be, to start a program somehow would be advantageous to us.
Okay. We'll leave that item if everybody's comfortable with that. Roads maintenance agreements. So I'm kind of looking towards Darwin and Brett about this.
Mr. Mayor, and we didn't have a chance to talk about this item before the meeting, but I see two situations that we're dealing with. We have roads that aren't boundary roads, but that we plow a portion of, and there are roads where Brett plows a portion of. And I know we've been doing it that same way since I started here, and I suspect it was probably just evolved when we had amalgamation. Probably around that time was when the current arrangement was started or continued. So I think on those, I was going to suggest that we should be formalizing that arrangement with maintenance agreements. And then the other situation we have where we have boundary roads. So over the last couple of years, we've done agreements. We did one for Ball Road, or sorry, we did a bylaw recognizing it as a boundary road, and we did one for portions of Buckshot Lake Road. But again, I think we should be developing those for Addington Road 3 and 4 and Scutamata, and updating maintenance agreements for those. So I think it's just time to update those arrangements.
Thank you. Brett, anything you want to add to that?
No, I agree 100%. Just to cover both townships for liability reasons, and that if should anything happen, I'm not saying it's going to, but we might as well cover our butts that way. So.
Any comments from any of the councilors? Okay, so how do we leave this? Do we leave it in the hands of you two? And you guys work out an arrangement and bring it back to council for final approval? Don't think so.
I don't know. I was going to ask Tara if we needed a resolution, or Brett and I leave doing that, and we'll both report back to councils.
One less resolution. That's good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Councilor Ingalls?
Darwin, do you expect this is gonna bring any big budget surprises?
No, I just see it formalizing agreements and arrangements, and on the, a big component of the maintenance agreements is liability and responsibility, and just assigning it. So I don't see big budget issues.
Okay. Berry Fire Department. Budget and the roles within the township. So this is, I'm one of the ones that have an issue with this. There are others. Councillor Fowler, you voiced opinions on this before. Would you like to start us off?
Yeah,
Fred, would you be closer to the mic, please, so Henry can hear you?
yeah, I see problems where we're purchasing equipment between the two fire departments. And a lot of times trying to track it, where that equipment's going to be used. Would it be in the North Frontenac area or in the Caladar area? Also, one of the other things that I noted too at one of the meetings is that there is another fire department in Addington Highlands, and that would be in Denby. And so you've got basically 3 fire departments that you're handling through one township. I myself think that North Frontenac should have their own fire department. I don't know, if that's doable because, the Caladar Fire Department's been around since amalgamation. And, it's pretty well entrenched in our system, but it's just an opinion of mine.
Counselor Good?
Yeah, I disagree with Counselor Fowler. I've been around a long time too, and it's been to say at the start, it was not really controversial, but it was a work in the process. Now it's pretty well synchronized. We both sides works together on it. I think it would be really expensive to try to take over Ward 1 with the rest of the departments. And another thing is volunteers. Volunteers, I'm not sure the number between Addington Highlands and North Frontenac, but they both work together at the both fire halls, in the Northbrook one and our Berry Hall in Cloyne. So it's, I think it would be just a nightmare to try to do. I don't think it's a possibility to even try it. And I would disagree with it right from the start.
Counselor Ingalls?
I was on the joint fire board in the past. I'm no longer on it, but I recall they were good meetings. They were informative. But I think now the issue is that at budget time, we're presented with huge capital and operating requests from a joint fire department that we just don't know enough about as councilors. I think there's a communication problem somewhere between the joint fire board and this council. I don't know how to fix that because I know you guys make considered decisions, but we're presented at budget for me with more or less an unknown, and it's a huge cost. I think that's the problem, is the feeling that it's costing all our taxpayers a huge amount of money and we don't really know what we're doing.
Counselor Thompson?
Yeah, I've been on that board for 10 years and, when we do all our budgets, and they're all difficult because like you said, it's big ticket items. But I mean, every member on there is very conscious of what they're trying to do and trying to save money, but at the end of the day, if we want services, we have to pay for it. And that's just, it's as simple as that. Far as feeling left out of the loop, when we have budget negotiations, we have the meetings published. If a counselor is interested in what's going on, they can attend the meeting and listen to what we're talking about. And so then when it comes back to you guys at council meetings, you understand where we're coming from. But I do think it's a good idea, just the way the systems work. I thought it's worked well. In the 10 years I've sat on that board, I think it works very well. So that's all. Thanks.
Counselor Huck?
I'm currently on the Joint Fire Board, and in response to Councilor Inglis' comment, we receive the same information you do back to council. So if we have a question, we know where to find the answer, and I encourage you, if you have a question and need more detail, which is certainly the case on those big ticket items, I encourage you to ask. And but I mean, every day we get the same information you do, even though we share a chief on our two fire departments.
Counselor Regent?
It would seem to me if anyone has a question, this might be the time to ask, considering both our chiefs are sitting here. So equipment or staffing, or the fact that we have two fire services, actually three, pardon me. We have two experts here. If you have a question.
Counselor Good?
And that's why we brought it forward too, is to have Chief Cuddy come to our budget meetings prior to it. So you'll get any information you want, you can ask it then as well.
So I'm going to step in here and give you my 2 cents, whereas the Frontenac Council has heard this from me a couple of times before. Whenever we get minutes from the Joint Fire Committee, it's here's who attended, here's the date, and we discuss resolution 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, end of it. Have no idea what's going on. We can ask, yes, and then comes budget time and we're asked to approve big ticket items. And we really are not comfortable with what's happening. We don't know enough. So I went back to 2019 and pulled the Lumix report, which talked about this issue, but with different ideas, and lack of communication or the need for improvements in communication was what they highlighted. And You know, if we're gonna continue the way they are and everything runs smoothly, at least I need more information, so I'm more comfortable when I vote, and speaking to some of the other councilors, maybe they feel the same way. Not saying it doesn't work well the way it is, it's just that when someone asks us to approve $500,000 or $1 million for a fire truck, it's like, holy geez, where does that come from? You know, do they have enough money? Do they not? What have they prepared? We don't know. Or we have limited information. Councilor Good.
There again, the meetings are not that often, 3 times a year roughly, depending on some for budget, but there again, you can actually go to the meetings yourself too if you want more information.
Councilor Regent, then Councilor Ingalls.
So nobody has a question for either fire chief. Like, this is the opportunity. How often do these meetings happen? We're all
Okay.
sitting here together.
I want you to hold that for now,
Okay.
because we're talking about a bigger picture item, not individual happenings. Councilor Ingalls.
I recall that Reeve Hogg used to be, maybe still is on the joint fire board. Maybe it's
Yes.
important to have the heads of council attend all joint fire board meetings. If that's too much to ask. Or maybe it's important to have more counselors for each township on the joint fire board. But my perception is that for whatever reason, I'm not blaming anybody, we just don't know enough about how Caledon Barrie Fire Department works.
Councilor Thompson.
Well, if that's the case, then perhaps just have both councils be the fire, on the fire boards, so everybody knows what's going on. I mean, you know, if people think there's not enough information and not happy with the way we're doing the job, and I'm not saying we're doing a right job, I'm
Didn't
not
say
saying
that.
we're doing a right job or a good job or a bad job. I'm not saying either way, but people have opinions about it, which is fine, but then perhaps both councils should sit on the fire board and then everybody knows what's going on.
Just for clarity, what I'm saying is, we don't have the information that makes us comfortable with making decisions, especially around budget time. The quality of the work, the job that's being done seems to be class act. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about where's the money going? It seems to be going in the right place, but as a council, you need to be comfortable with the decisions you are making when you vote yes or no. So that's all I'm saying.
Right, and that's why I'm saying now is that maybe everybody should attend. When we do a budget meeting, both councils should attend. The board would still make the decisions. You know, we wouldn't have everybody have an opinion. We just have the board and we sit there, but at the end of the day, everybody knows what's going on. There's only going to be 2 meetings, maybe 1, just depends, but it's not a big effort for everybody to attend a meeting if they're all interested in what's going on, you know?
Councilor Yash.
Yeah, just budgets, yeah.
I guess I'm surprised by this because I know that I was always confused when I first started council about the fire departments, both in our township and the shared one with North Frontenac. But I guess at the end of the day, both fire chiefs should attend all council meetings. I think that would be a good start. And so we can, they can give us a report at least one of those meetings, if you have 2 meetings a month or whatever. I think that is where the information needs to come from Chief Cuddy and Chief Robinson for your side. I think that's where the the breakdown is. I know that they're both busy doing jobs, but I think that they need to attend each meeting, and if we have any questions as counselors, we can ask them directly there. And they can give us a report back of what has been happening for the last month or whatever. And if that's includes the budget, I think that's where it should be. I think that's the breakdown. I agree. We just don't always know what's happening in the fire department until all of a sudden we have to deal with some question. But I think to me, that would be very important for Chief Cuddy, and I'll just speak for that, not for him, but for us, because he's our chief. I think that we really need to have a report from him every month, and we go from there, and then we can ask questions.
Any other comments? Councillor Hook?
Well, if everything was going along smoothly with a budget that was pretty well the same year to year, we probably wouldn't even be having this discussion. But we've seen the fire budgets with the training, the personal protection equipment has skyrocketed. The cost of a fire truck goes from 500,000 to 800,000. Maybe my figures are a little wrong, but those
No, they're close.
surprises hurt our budget. And we're seeing the fire budgets grow dramatically from year to year. And so I understand the concern.
The other thing is trying to manage the two fire departments from a human resources issue. We had a motion before us, earlier this year, or at budget time, where we would, add benefits to firefighters. Pay pack or pay benefits and so on. And we said, no, we wanted to see what Addington Highlands did first. Because we did not want to be seen as 2/3 of the township from North Frontenac getting paid this and 1/3 getting paid this. So went to the Joint Fire Committee. The Joint Fire Committee said no. And we didn't proceed, but we were at one point in time, well, we have budget coming up again, we'll move back and maybe another decision because we know what the other half is. So it creates a bit of a dichotomy if we're not working in sync. So that's one of the issues that we need to, maybe just the whole thing with the councils need to get together on this and discuss what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, especially items like that. You know, it's one thing to buy an $800,000 or $1 million fire truck, but you start paying somebody an extra $2 or $3 an hour and you add a bit of this and that, that's what hits their pocketbook and people get upset. So. Councillor Ingalls.
I like Councillor Yanch's suggestion that the fire chiefs attend, maybe not all council meetings. We have one every 3 weeks. I think you guys have one every 2 weeks. Once a month, maybe enough. Maybe it should be a regular budget item, a short report from the fire chief. Ken is right here that the cost 15, 20 years ago was not a huge item, the cost of equipment. And given that in the Frontenac Fire Department, at least most of the activity is medical and health related, not fire related. But that's where all the capital is. It's a huge imbalance and it's become very significant.
Councillor Thompson.
Perhaps the information that we have and we look at when it's budget time, perhaps that could be all distributed to each council member so they can review it on their own. But we'd still sit as a committee and make a decision on it and then come back to council, but it's not like it's a secret, right? It's not a secret. Everybody knows what it is, but we just have all that information given to the councilors and then they read it and they say, oh God, these guys want a 14% increase. Like, what are they talking about? But at least you would all be informed. And it's simple as just giving out paper handout. So,
Corey.
So can I just get some clarification? So at budget, Chief Robinson, I don't believe has input into the Caledar-Barrie budget. Am I correct in saying that, Casey? So I'm just not, based on that, I'm not sure what the benefit of having Chief Robinson go to your council meetings would be, or Casey coming to our council meetings, other than maybe budget time. So I just don't see how that would work or what the benefit would be of that.
Councillor Yance.
I guess I didn't mean that Chief Cuddy maybe has to attend your council meetings, but certainly the ones in Addington Highlands, but it certainly wouldn't hurt, I wouldn't think, to meet with North Frontenac, and you could certainly ask questions then. I just think it's very important that they're in a leadership role and we need to have information from the top down as well as from the bottom up.
All right.
Yeah, so just for clarification, so everybody's aware, on June 7th, a resolution of the Joint Fire Committee, Caledar-Barrie, as Joint Fire Committee approves. So it's more or less approving Chief Cuddy to attend a North Frontenac Council meeting prior to each annual budget. So that is on the books, that resolution. So just so you're all aware, that has been has been agreed to and has been passed. So just want to make sure you're aware of that as well.
Okay, we're good with that? Okay. Casey,
Yes, I'll just throw my 2 cents in here real quick. I have no problem with attending. I certainly don't have the time. I don't think to attend every meeting by any means, but I have no problem with attending at budget time and going through stuff with the North Frontenac Council or anybody. One of the things that we have to consider is that, and Councillor Yanch, I understand where you're coming from because we've had this discussion. I don't discuss Caladarberry Joint Fire Department stuff with Addington Highlands Council directly. All of my stuff goes straight to the Joint Fire Committee. When I do my reports to the Addington Highlands Council, they are for Denby Fire Department, not the Joint Fire Department, because that's the channels. That way it doesn't leave. I'm not sitting there reporting something to Addington Highlands Council that North Frontenac Council should be aware of, or councillors that sit on the committee should be aware of. So I make it a point of only reporting Denby to Addington Highlands, and the Caladarberry stuff goes to the Joint Fire Committee. If we need to change that, then we can look at that however you wish. But that's the way I've always operated it, so that I wasn't trying to keep anybody in the dark. And when it comes to the budget, yes, no matter where you go, everything's gone up in price. It doesn't matter whether you're talking roads or waste or anything. It's gone up, unfortunately. And that's something that even the consultants a few years ago that did the asset management plans had no idea that we were going to see the increases that we've seen. So that's a huge one that I assume that's probably one of the biggest bumps that have hit. The other comment would be my annual report. I didn't realize that it wasn't going back to council. It was just going and dead ending at the Joint Fire Committee before. I believe it goes to both councils now. Is there anything that should be in that report that isn't in there? And if there is, any council member, please feel free to let me know and we'll try and make sure we get it in it.
any other comments? Councillor Hoodle.
I'm on the fire board also. It's a little confusing because there's so much involved. It always amazes me. I mean, if I look at it in the business world, huge inefficiency, but I won't go there. But Chief Cuddy is coming to our meetings starting this year, so that will help with some of the communication.
All right, well, let's Corey.
So just one more, and I think this is more operational and for the treasurers and for Casey. So we're starting our budget meetings in November this year in anticipation of either having our budget approved by the new year or shortly thereafter. So that's going to have to be some operations. I'm not sure we're going to have to work out how we're going to manage Caladarberry budget within that realm, because at the time would you do your budget, I believe, be spring, right? Correct. So again, that's just one thing that we need to make sure everybody's on board with and understands, and we'll have to figure that one out too. It's coming.
My comment, Casey, is you have a tough job. You have two bosses. So Councillor Region asked a question. Is there anything that we want to ask the fire chiefs directly because they're both here? Councillor Hulu.
Maybe to both chiefs, just recruitment, how's that going? How do you see that in the future? Where do you see any roadblocks, anything like that?
That's it. I'm moving the mic. Yep. Yeah. So we're very fortunate right now. There's always room for more members, for sure. But we're very fortunate that in the Caladarberry Fire Department, we have a good number of certified, committed firefighters. We're fortunate that way because we have a little more population to draw from in that general area anyway. But there is more room for more. And I know every time I see someone leave, I usually contact them and try to chase them down and find out why they're leaving. A lot of them are leaving because of family, costs, whatever, and time commitments. That's the biggest challenge. And we see them, unfortunately, the ones we see leave usually go to other emergency services, you know, policing, fire, and city fire departments, stuff like that, where they're getting benefits and whatnot. So there are those things that may help. And just Mayor Willetchie, yeah, you made a comment earlier about different things with regards to the benefit stuff. Some have and some not. If you did it, we're on different pay scales anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Mr. Fowler. Well, Councilor Fowler.
Yes, just regarding certification, how long does it take an individual that joins the volunteer fire department? How long does it get to get them certified? And are there only so many certifications available annually to accommodate people? I'm really concerned about that.
Mr. Mayor, through you. So the certification question is multi-layered. The length of time it takes to get an individual certified truly depends on the program that we enroll them in. Currently, North Frontenac and Central Frontenac are doing a joint recruit program, which will take a brand new body and by the end of November, have them certified to level 2, NFPA 1001 level 2. And then there's a component of hazmat that needs to be tagged on to that. So it could be, 3 months, it could be 6 months. It really depends on the length of the program.
I don't understand the different levels. Could you explain them? Number 1 and 2.
Hang on. I'm going to ask Adam and probably Casey when they come back to council to talk to us about these different levels and how their pay scales work. Because I ask and I get told, well, it goes in one ear and out the other ear. And it'd be really nice if we had something in writing like a typical firefighter. What do they get paid? Do they get paid show up time? What happens if they get partway there? What happens if they're at a fire, at a medical call, that sort of thing. Can you provide summaries to us for that down the road at a meeting?
We can, yes.
And Casey, can you do that when you come back to us? Thank you. So Adam, you have anything?
Mr. Mayor, through you. So Councillor Fowler, your first question was regarding certification. So again, it depends on the length of the program we enroll them in. And the second part was, can you refresh your question for me, please?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the how long it would take them. Like for instance, if a firefighter joins the fire department, and when can he do the biggest jobs that are available, or they're different? Like I said, you mentioned different levels and everything, and I was just concerned that if you wait too long, you might lose that individual as a volunteer, and that's a big concern of mine.
Mr. Mayor, through you, it depends on, a multitude of things. It depends on when they join the department. It depends on, sometimes the individual. It depends on, how quickly we can get them trained to do certain things. There's really no clean cut answer. The answer everyone wants to hear is as quickly as possible. But there are a lot of constraints that and things and layers that move around getting them from brand new to being able to do a full blown suppression operation.
Anything else? You two gentlemen are you finished, or would you like to add anything else? Now is your opportunity. You got everybody here. Councilor Hoodle.
With EVs now, can you tell me what you're doing for training and where you see this going? And what's this going to cost us?
Mr. Mayor, through you. So North Frontenac Fire Department's approach to EV training and lithium ion, we have a budget allocated for that for 2024. We completed an in-house awareness training session on lithium ion and EVs that was provided by industry experts that deal with these sort of calls every day. In the future, we're going to continue with annual awareness training. We're going to incorporate, different tactics, things of that nature into our annual training program and continue to be as prepared as we can be.
Anything else? Anything else?
Sorry, I know this will sound maybe insignificant, but honestly, at the end of the day, when I look at not necessarily just the budget, but everything, like once a month, I'd like to know how many medical assists attended to. I know nothing of this. Oh, Counselor Yance, do you not know this? No, I know nothing. I would like some basic information every month. I'd like to know how many medical assists. I'd want to know how many fires. And it's not because I'm going to be nitpicking about it. I just want those facts. I just want those figures, because to me, that's what everybody sees and everybody. So anyway, at the end of the day, that's just my little rant, but I think I want that information once a month. How many medical assists, how many fires you attended or whatever. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Anybody else? Counselor Hood?
I just want to say, I think you guys are doing a great job. I got a lot of good positive feedback from people in my area, how quick you guys respond. So thank you.
So to Counselor Yance's comment, we get that information, but we don't get it very frequently. So we need to, I guess that's Corey and Adam, if we could have it more frequently. And now Casey as well, because you're covering this half of the township or that part of the township. It'd be nice to know what is happening. So Counselor Good.
Yeah, I don't think we require it once a month. I think every 3 months would be adequate. Once a month is a little bit too, it adds more to their time as well.
Two councils may think differently, but yeah, I
That's
agree with
fine if
you.
they do.
I
but
agree with
that's
you.
my opinion.
Counselor Ingalls.
Adam, you never got a chance to answer two questions. The last one from Fred was, are there limitations in training that limit the numbers? And the other question was, how's recruitment?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, limitations in training, again, really depend on budget available. They depend on programs that are running within a reasonable distance to North Frontenac to keep costs reasonably low. Again, I worked with Central Frontenac to enter into a joint training program this fall that's going to see quite a few numbers meet certification mandate by Christmas time. So I think exploring options, I think working together with departments that we have mutual and automatic aid agreements with are going to help boost some of those areas, perhaps where we would normally have a lack of opportunity for state to send bodies away to, somewhere out Norwood way that's going to have a huge cost for travel, lodging, all of the sort of things. If we can continue to work together with our mutual aid and automatic aid partners to come up with a solution, I think that's going to be the answer for training to get it done as quickly and as effectively as possible. On the recruitment side, we've had, and I'd have to look back at the roster, so forgive me if I'm not as accurate as I could be, but 8 new people joined since Christmas, and we're going to have a good number of those certified come Christmas time. So I think at this time today, we're in pretty good shape based on the pool we have to draw from and the way things are.
Okay. Final comments before we leave this topic? Okay. We'll see you more frequently.
Excuse me. Could we ask for a break, a short one?
I was gonna do that at 10:30, but we could do that now. Okay, let's take a lifestyle break till 10:25. Okay?
Recording in progress.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's continue with item 4E, bylaw enforcement shared services. We've worked together with a report on bylaw officers and short-term rentals and so on. What are your thoughts on this item?
I think we're in a position where we need to look at something because we currently do not have the manpower to do any increased bylaw enforcement.
So Reeve Hogg, what does Addington Highlands, how do you administer your bylaws now? Do you have a contract in place or something?
Our building inspector is also our bylaw enforcement officer.
We hire a contractor. But the contractor's out of Kingston. So
How has that worked out?
it's a long way at 2:00 in the morning to a house party. So,
yeah.
Corey.
So overall, just to answer that, overall, it works out quite well. There are times, like Mayor Litchi just mentioned, noise complaints are an issue, but that's not just here. That's become anywhere is my understanding. What's happening is bylaw enforcement officers are getting to a call at 2:00 in the morning. The OPP are not there to back them up, and so and this is all over the place now, where they're saying a lot of them we can go in and deal with it the next day. Unfortunately, that's reality. Otherwise, it works out okay. And I did just a quick for us, we're about 20,000 a year in bylaw enforcement with our contractor. So they are here. It's reactive. We're complaint based. We have been forever. So they're not here running the roads looking for infractions, but they do respond to complaints. So when needed. So about 20,000, and that's not including any we get into court cases or anything. That doesn't include that, but that's for enforcement. It's also for the Dog Owners Liability Act, stuff like that. So actually for what we're paying, we're doing okay.
Counselor Fowler.
Yeah, for a bylaw officer to enforce one of our things, there's a lot of work involved. They have to take several trips to the courts when they're laying a charge. They have to see just a piece of swear to an information. There's a lot of little things that they have to do to get that charge to the courts. And and that's where a lot of that money is. And it's a lot of traveling back and forth for them. I just wanted to let you know that's what I found.
So then, in most cases, let's say we win and the fine goes to the province. We don't get that. So we're out the costs. It's, in my opinion, if we hire a bylaw officer, it's not just one. You've got to hire 2 or 3 or 4 because you've got vacations, you've got backup, you've got weekends, you've got to buy a couple vehicles, you've got to make sure the train, you've got uniforms. It's not an $80,000 thing. It's more like a $200,000 or $300,000 hit. And maybe I'm a little out on that, but it's not a simple one position job. So to work together with Addington Highlands, that's doable. But do we want to do that? Has it come to that where we absolutely have to? Counselor Good.
I think $20,000 is, well, it might end up being 60,000 for the year. But I think that's a lot more feasible than 200,000, 300,000, and 400,000. Start hiring people.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Good. I think it's not just the current cost, it's the potential future cost.
Corey?
I could share a copy of our agreement with our who we use if you like, with Christine if you'd like to, and maybe that's something you'd like to explore. But again, overall, it works out pretty good. It's not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but it's pretty good for what we're paying. And again, if we want to get into paying huge bucks, you know, then it would be different, but at the time it's working okay. It's not bad for what we're paying. So if you'd like, I can send you a copy of our agreement we have and you can certainly look at it.
Counselor Good.
Yes, I think we should still be looking at these Airbnbs more and getting something going on that. I know there's been a committee working on it, at least from Central and here, and I think Highlands, I'm not sure. But anyway, hey,
It's coming up. No, it's coming up.
oh, okay, that's good.
Okay. I have talked to the head of the OPP for Frontenac County, and they don't see this as being a priority for them, and they're just not going to respond. They're too busy. You know, there's only 1 or 2 cruisers on it at night, and they're usually down on Highway 7 or at an accident scene or something. They're only going to respond in most cases to the high priorities. I have talked to several lake associations that they talk about noise complaints, but the noise complaints are quite often from somebody's kids, and that somebody's a member of the lake association, and they've given the property to the kids and their friends for the weekend. You know, and now what do you do, right? So it's a kind of a catch-22. So Councilor Hoodle.
Just out of curiosity, how many complaints do you visit a year?
I'm usually looking at between 25 and 30 a year. Now, that seems exceptionally low, but there are follow-ups and follow-ups and follow-ups. So, you know, you could probably times that by 6 to get to the end result of what you're looking for to get the bylaw enforced.
Just so to clarity for myself, all fines for bylaws, all fines for bylaws go to the provincial government?
Except the parking bylaw. Corey.
So we've kind of on our list to look at amps down the road. So once South Frontenac and Central Frontenac, I think, is working on it. So that will change if we ever get there. We're looking at amps. So, but
what's amps?
Oh, Terry, you're gonna have to help me with the
It's administrative monetary penalties.
Yes.
So you kind of introduced them in place of the fines. You would have these apps, which would, that money is then recouped by the township versus going to courts.
So it's a completely new system or a different system than what we use now. So we have been toying with the idea. It's just a matter of, I want to see how it works with South and Central, and then I'll be bringing you guys back a report to, you know, see how it's going. But we're kind of thinking about bringing something to you guys.
Is that the system where you're in South Frontenac, you get a complaint, South Frontenac levies an administrative cost against you without even investigating? Okay. That would work. Anybody else?
So Addington Highlands is roughly 20. What are we?
Yeah, I'm not sure for this year. I would say probably around the same, but he's right. That's the follow-up. That's the really difficult part. It's back and forth and back and forth.
You make that report to us at least once a year, right?
Yes, that's correct. At the end of the year, I do a report for you each year.
So something to work together on in the future or continue to work together on?
I think so.
Doctor recruitment, item F.
Just go back to that once, where
Okay.
the OPP will show up if they're not busy. We've had them show up on our lake at 2 a.m. but if they're busy, you're correct, they won't come out.
Right. They specifically told me it's not a high priority for them. Yes, sir.
So of those complaints that come in, I'd say they're evenly divided between noise, garbage, and right now we're having a big problem with chicken. So those are the.
You may not be alone in that one.
But those are the 3 major, lines of concentration as far as the complaints that we get.
Councilor Ingalls.
We're assuming that Addington Highlands and we are gonna coordinate with the object of hiring an outside bylaw inspector. I'm assuming from what Corey said, maybe we should be looking at the possibility of using our building inspector to be our bylaw enforcement officer, the way our neighbor does.
Our current building inspector is also our septic inspector. So we don't have that capacity right now, but maybe down the road we will. I'm not dumping on the idea. I know it sounds like that. That
it's-
isn't the intent.
I think there's value in having an in-house expert topic.
Anybody else? Okay, now go.
Yes, I do have a comment. I was the author of that resolution, and I must say I was certainly disappointed and somewhat angry at the response and support offered by Addington Highlands. I couldn't understand the actual reasoning as to why they wouldn't support this, because the resolution I thought was quite clear. Recruitment of doctors is not a municipal responsibility. It's a provincial responsibility. And I thought the chances of collecting this, maybe it was a long shot, but it was a good opportunity to put the province on notice that at some point we did expect to be reimbursed for their responsibility.
Councilor Hook?
I don't believe that ever was our expectation.
Okay. Councilor Hook?
Sorry, I didn't understand what Repog said. Could you repeat that, Repog?
I don't believe we ever expected to be reimbursed by the province for our doctor attraction expenses.
I believe the idea is that we paid it, we didn't expect it, but we're going to ask anyway. To see what they say, and Addington Highlands said, we're not interested in doing that, and that caused an issue. So, Councilor Hook.
Well, I did support it, but I didn't get a seconder. But I think the problem council had, and maybe councilors can correct me if I'm wrong, it was the wording of it and as Henry says, the expectation, and how would you go back for so many years and try to figure out how much we've spent over the years on doctor attraction. And so I think the resolution was a bit vague, although in hindsight, well, it's not in hindsight, I think we're both on the same page. We think this is a provincial obligation, not a municipal one. So we're on the same page there. And for some reason, the wording wasn't quite acceptable, I guess. So, and no other motion came out of it. So that's why it was turned down. But I think we're in total agreement where you're coming from. And if I could ask, how was the response from other municipalities?
We only went to Addington Highlands. Because it was our $40,000, 20 and 20. Councilor Hermer.
I did hear the mayor of Kingston state that they were considering asking for reimbursement of the funds that they've contributed. So, I mean, we're not standing alone here.
So what Addington Highlands doesn't know is that by request of the council last fall, we were able to successfully solicit a delegation with the Minister of Health. And we talked about doctor recruitment. And we said, we're not here to rework everything. We understand. We're not arguing. We're just telling you from a grassroots level, this is the way it is. And we focused on not so much on the $40,000 to hire a headhunter. We focused on the $95,000 each township is going to fork out over the next 5 years. And before we went in, we had the MPP for Lanark, Frontenac Lanark, did I get that right? Anyway, said, recruiting firms don't work. The doctors stay a year or two and then leave. Well, we have a 5-year contract, which was unusual. So we'll actually see what does happen. Looks like we've got the right individual. Time will tell. And they listened to us at the minister's level, and we talked about future education, and assistant deputy minister stepped in. She didn't like that. But they were very nice, very polite, and said, goodbye, see you later. So but we had 15 minutes of time with the minister to express our concerns. And we even said, can you, instead of the 95,000, can you give us the 92,000 up front for that rurality index? And can you give us something at the 3-year level to encourage them to stay longer? And they said, no, there's too many other agreements, good agreements and so on and so forth. So, unless somebody at the provincial level somehow wakes up, it's not going to happen. The question is, we've got one doctor. We are also supporting an MRI machine at Smith Falls and Smith Falls Hospital. We have a delegation on their Thursday night meeting from the Napanee Hospital for a request for funds for their MRI machine. Central Frontenac said no to Perth and Smith Falls. I have no idea what this council is going to decide on Thursday night. That we're out $95,000 over 5 years to bring in one doctor. What happens if we need doctor number 2 and doctor number 3? That's the big issue here. So until we get somehow the numbers build up of available specialists or available doctors, we're probably going to be facing this for some time. Councillor Good.
Maybe Steffi can help on this, but I've heard that the new doctor's bringing in some kind of a machine. Is it an MRI machine or what is that? Do you know, Steph?
No, he's not doing that.
No?
No,
Okay.
he has some really great new ideas for that clinic, probably which will, in some regard, enable some of our rostered patients to not have to go to one of our 2 hospitals all the time for the slightest little thing. But no, he's, it's probably a rumor you heard something about an ultrasound machine. Yeah. I mean, I don't have confirmation of that at this point. Ken and I, Councillor Hook and I both sit on the board there. Yeah, I can say though that he's got some very good ideas. He's young, he's interested. He picked up 800 people off the wait list. So he picked up Dr. Dumas's patients and then about 800 people off the wait list that have been on that wait list for many, many years. So I personally think the money is extremely well spent. And to Mayor Lichty's point, this is not going to go away. We will need doctor number 2 and doctor number 3 if Dr. Tobiah and Dr. Tam have any hope in ever retiring. This is a long-term project. So I actually think we need to come up with some unique, interesting ways to deal with this long-term, because it's not just like any other form of recruitment like we spoke about earlier. It's an ongoing thing. We don't want to be stuck again with being short.
This is not a made in North Frontenac or in Highlands problem. This is everywhere in the province of Ontario and beyond. It's even worse in the Maritimes. We've got friends down there and it's brutal compared to what we have here. Okay, is there anything else on this doctor recruitment? Okay, Councillor Hoodle.
So our council has always been very in favor of supplying funds to recruit doctors and that, but go to Councillor Hermer's point. This was a time we could make a statement to the provincial government. We've always been supportive of it, but it's their mandate. And, I agree with Councillor Hermer. I'm not sure why adding that instant, and you say it was wording. The point was a clear point, and it would have been good if you supported us as a neighboring municipality.
Okay. Last chance at this topic. Okay. Cell gap coverage, Eastern Ontario Regional Network. So it's we both are part of the ER network and delivering the cell towers. There's one in Snow Road, it's on the edge of our property. There's a new one in Cloyne. It takes forever to get a land use permit or a land use authority. And then they put the tower up, then you have to wait for Hydro One to hook it up. And they're short of manpower, so it takes a long time. And then the expectations never match the reality. There is a tower we know going down near Henderson, and there's two more on the Arddock Road, and there's one near Wampa. And I look at the map and I see several through Addington Highlands. But this was a topic that Addington Highlands put forward. So would like to speak to it?
Only that there's been delays due to the environmental assessments, archaeological assessments, consultations with the indigenous people. So it's all added to the, I guess, delays of getting these towers built. I know there's another one up on at the restaurant on Mazenal Lake that's active now too, but further north there are still more in the planning stages over the next couple of years, from what I understand.
I think the end of their program is supposed to be 2026. That may get extended.
Yeah.
We have one up on Quackenbush Road, which is very northwest corner.
And we have some over in West Lampoon Lake area too. But
just a matter of time. What about, sorry, go ahead, Councilor Good.
Yeah, just gonna say, I know on the west end of Gull Lake, there's no service there pretty well, any place west end there and west end of Kashwashamak, all the cottages and Hartle, the village of Hartle, there's nothing.
So that particular tower, there's an individual who lives on Myers Cave Road or just off it, was right on to Rogers about that. And Rogers went out and did a check the signal, and there's that 250-foot high cliff. So the signal goes right over top. So they have said that they will do their best to orientate one of the antenna on the Henderson Tower to come into this area. But that's Rogers. But yes, it's the geographic area or the topography that's causing that problem. You think they would have known about it in advance. Councilor Fowler?
Yeah, I travel around quite a bit and I find cell does drop off in certain areas and then picks up again. It's very difficult for them to cover 100% of the area. Cell towers they have a limited amount of range, and I think that's the problem.
Anybody else? Getting information out of ER is not easy. It just isn't. So affordable housing. Is this an Addington Highlands item? Okay. What's your thought, folks? Reeve Hogg, do you have anything to say on this?
not really. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, affordable housing is a county, what they call PELUS, the Prince Edward Lennox and Addington Social Services, really administers the whole affordable housing envelope, I guess you would call it, and I don't have any specifics. Anyone else on council has thoughts?
Councilor Hook?
Reeve Hogg is certainly correct, although during the last election, it was a major campaign issue of affordable housing. And we know in Addington Highlands, we haven't had any new structures, social housing projects in the last 20 years. So it's an issue. Another part of it though is the whole the change in the bylaws, building bylaws, and how that will be addressed. And I think that's coming forth with our official plan update. Patricia probably has more on that, but that's something that people are looking at where you can put in a larger septic system and do several homes. And like on the surface, it looks like it might be a good solution in some areas, but
Frontenac County, the minimum lot size is 2 acres. And the reason, or 0.8 hectares, the reason for that was you build a house, you have a well, you have a septic system. At some point in time, you need to change the septic system. The reality is they take out septic system A and put septic system B right on top of the old one. So you don't need as much, but still the 2 acres is on the books. So Frontenac County with the 4 Frontenac townships have created something called the Frontenac Municipal Services Corporation. And that theoretically looks at new technologies. If you're over so many houses, you can create a subdivision. We can drop the size of the lots to basically city-sized lots, but you'll have a septic disposal system over here. Some of the technologies are phenomenal. One of the systems is made in Rockville. It comes in a 20 or 30-foot container. There you go. But it's designed for 30 houses or more. And where we are, getting a 30-house subdivision is getting to be a little bit iffy. So we're looking at different types of, actually, I'm going to let Roy talk with us because Roy's on the technical committee. I'm just on the board of directors. So Roy knows more about this than I do.
The technology is out there to have a subdivision of 5 homes, if you'd like, right? So we're reviewing that right now. So yeah, if you're interested in, I would contact North Frontenac Municipal Service Corporation, because we're not just looking at doing this within our municipality of County of Frontenac, but any other municipalities in Ontario. We've had a lot of interest from other municipalities of this moving forward.
Right. So the idea is you start getting away from the individual septic system and the individual wells. But basically, if you create it, say you had 10 houses, you'd have 1 septic system or 1 disposal system, 1 water source, and that would be controlled by the Frontenac Municipal Service Corporation. And just be like a city, the individuals would pay for the use. So everything's controlled centrally. So theoretically, control of that system is much higher end because you have experts looking at it and so on. And we have a contract now with EORN. They've got money from CMHC, and it's tied into affordable housing. So Frontenac is developing, actually Roy's group is developing a lot of the templates that are going to be needed for hiring contractors and so on and so forth. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next 5 years. But at the end of the day is we could take out this lot out here, instead of putting 1 house on it, we could put in 3 or 4, theoretically. If you want that, Councilor Ingalls.
So we have an economic development task force chaired by Councilor Regent. And that task force has a subgroup looking at the topic of, well, it started out as barriers to housing and affordable housing, is what we're considering now. And it's a huge complex issue. And I sometimes wonder if we've just jumped on a provincial bandwagon and are talking about it like everybody else. That's probably not the case, but we're trying in that subgroup to recognize who is our target audience for affordable housing. Who are we looking at? What can they afford? What could we possibly build that's affordable? Where would we put it? What kind of innovative financial arrangements could we make? It's a huge topic, and we've not been sidelined, but the issue we're looking at immediately is this issue of 3 homes now allowed, mandated by the province, 3 residential units on a single piece of property. So we're going to be providing input to the county planning department with ideas about how we'd like to see that implemented. And I think there's going to be some interesting discussions around that issue. We have certain ideas that I think may be difficult for county planners to swallow, but that's a new reality that 3 homes are now allowed on a single piece of property. We have to rewrite our zoning bylaw to allow that, and there will be restrictions, of course, but that that affects the possibility of affordable housing. We've been looking at tiny houses, for example, but it's a huge topic. It's, if anything is going to happen, it's probably going to require some level of entrepreneurship and risk taking by the township, and that's not something typically we do. But if anybody on our neighboring council would like to get involved in talking about this, I'd certainly be happy.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Okay, David, you have the floor.
Well, I know over in Addington Highlands, most of the calls I get about affordable housing revolves around the idea of tiny homes. It's unequivocal in its nature. I often get the idea that we would certainly be able to entertain a lot more individuals moving to the area if we had a tiny home policy in place. The affordability just isn't there to build something of our minimum requirements today, which is 860 square feet. And tiny home resolves a lot of issues. Getting back to the 10 unit, you have to be careful with 10 homes in one stretch. We've got a septic situation there with 10,000 daily design sewage flow as a limit. And anything over that, of course, involves the Ministry of Environment, and they would take that over. And I'm not so sure they're super happy about doing something like that. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Fowler.
And just a question for John Ingalls. What's the smallest lot that you could put 3 houses on that you're looking at?
I don't know.
If the lot is there, theoretically, like the bylaw's not been written, one of those units has to be part of the first unit. So it's 2 buildings, the way I understand it, but we're not there yet. We're on the way, right?
Part of what we want to change.
And there might be an issue with waterfront too. We don't know. There's a lot of Councillor Regent.
Well, the bylaws that we're talking about, we have a meeting coming up with the county and, correct me if I'm wrong, John, it's October, to talk about this very topic. We've been invited to give our 2 cents. It would appear on the surface, at least at the moment, that it is just for property that is not on water to begin with.
So the province has put out, I don't know, it was an information paper or was something different, that they're in favor of modular homes. The modular homes are at least 2 sections on a full concrete foundation or concrete footings. They don't talk about any single wides or tiny homes. They kind of basically say if it's on wheels, it's not acceptable. So you can't have a subdivision of tiny homes, but that may be something that's different. I don't know. But modular homes, you bring them in, put them on a foundation, tie them together, and you're good to go. And it's very efficient living. Don't know how much cheaper it is, just that it's quicker to install. Councillor Ingalls.
Once again, to my mind, it all comes down to the question of what is the market? What is the demographic that would be interested in this kind of housing? And how much can they afford? So that's where, in my mind, that we're starting from. We're starting at the point of, okay, we're trying to house people who can afford $1,500 a month or something. Does that market exist? I'm not even absolutely sure that it does yet.
So affordable housing, as of last year, may have changed back again, is now called attainable housing. And the province's definition is 80% of the value of the surrounding homes. So if you're in a subdivision of $800,000 homes, attainable is $640,000. That's not what you call affordable. But that's what the province has said is what it is. Whatever that means. So and if you get closer to Toronto, your $1 million, $2 million homes, 800,000, $1.6 million is what it is. Things are they're not easy. So we looked at seniors housing. We have not moved on it. We've got money available to us from the county, but it's not substantial, and we have to match it $2 for every dollar. So that's a substantial hit to us, and we looked at it saying, how many people are we going to benefit, or will benefit from expenditure like this? And we backed down from it and said, really, we'll see where it goes, but right now it's not in our budget. John?
Still curious as if Addington Highlands brought up this item, what is the interest? Do you have any plans? How can we work together? Is there some energy over there to do something? I'd just like to know.
Reeve Hogg, you're just on mute. If you can just unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I think
Yeah.
there's certainly an interest in Addington Highlands, but the details are sort of need a lot of investigation because we don't really have an idea, what is affordable and how can you build something that is affordable. So it's something we have to do a lot more homework on, I'd say.
Perhaps we'll reach out to your building inspector.
Sorry?
I said perhaps we could reach out to your building inspector.
Is this topic worth having a special get together with some of the staff from Addington Highlands, their councilors and this team as well, or this council as well? Or should we just keep going our own way and then see what develops and then get together at that point in time? Just a second. Councilor Regent?
I mean, Don can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I interpreted his last comment was that maybe there's somebody from Addington Highlands that would like to join our subcommittee. I think this is a great opportunity. Affordable housing, what the province may think affordable housing is that is not what we are looking at. There are people here that are unhoused and we need to do something about it. So if there's anyone from Addington Highlands that would like to join us, this isn't going to get fixed overnight, but we've made some progress. Our subcommittee, I have to say, I'm impressed. So if there's anyone that would like to do that with us from the other side of the highway, we'd be happy to have you.
Okay. Councilor Hook?
I would like to join if you'd have me.
You have to bring
We just need your volunteer time.
Okay, Stephanie, can you talk to Ken and see what you can do? There's obviously the approval process. You can figure that out. Okay, we're going to leave this topic now. Lunch is coming about noonish, is that right? Okay. And it's from Hunter's Creek, so it'll be good. Economic development initiatives. This for you?
Sure can be. I don't think I put this on the agenda, but it kind of ties in with the affordable housing. So please correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't know if Addington Highlands has an economic development task force. And again, if this is not the correct procedure, again, interrupt. But perhaps there's a way for us to work together. We have a great EDTF over here, chaired by our deputy mayor for quite some time and has been handed to me. There are some very smart, interested people over here working on some really great projects. So I guess from my perspective for this agenda item, the ask would be, again, if there's anyone from Addington Highlands that would like to somehow participate in a joint effort in some way, shape, or form. I do not know what that looks like or what we would have to do to make that happen. But anyone sitting here can appreciate that I'm a big believer in collaboration. So that would be my 2 cents for that agenda item. I think there's probably some stuff we could do very well together.
Addington Highlands? You have any comments? Councilor Hook?
We have a committee called the AHEAD Committee, which stands for Addington Highlands Economic Advisors for Development. And we meet, 3-4 times a year. Over the years, it has become less active in the point of the county of Lennox and Addington has been doing a very good job of economic development. They've taken over the tourism portfolio from the Land Lakes Tourist Association from years back, and they've run with it, and they've been quite successful with that. In fact, they've been very supportive. They brought in the county trail system in Flinton and had visited every business that we have, so they've been very supportive. I think years ago before that, when the head committee was beginning, I mean, we thought about, you know, not having building permit fees for commercial development, and that was attractive. And then we were told we couldn't do it, and now we know that anyone that has a community improvement plan can do it. So if you have enough money to make a community improvement plan, such as our lower townships, you can do that kind of thing, but we can't. So that's a kind of a bee in my bonnet anyways. So yes, we do have a committee. It's active, but we don't have a lot on our plate right now.
Councilor Ingalls.
It sounds like your county has a slightly more active role than our, I mean, Frontenac County has a planning and economic development department, but the population bias, it's probably the same where you are, but population bias here is 30,000 down in South Frontenac. We're sort of 3,000 or 4,000. They get most of the attention in the South. There's a huge emphasis at the county on farm support, which is great, and local foods. We now have the county economic development officer attending our meetings monthly. We have our own community improvement plan. It's difficult to get council to approve funding to the level we'd like, because money is always tight, of course, and certain things take priority over community improvement plans. We had an economic development officer, and that worked for a while. We're advocating for a part-time. We will be advocating for a part-time position in that area again. But again, council has to make the decision. I'm not sure. I think we're in slightly different places. You may have a slightly more supportive county for your small population Northern Township than we do. I'm not complaining about Frontenac County, but it's just a different reality is developed differently. We feel we're kind of on our own.
So for what that, I can't let this go by, I'm sorry. So for what it's worth, I sit on the county council, as does Councilor Fowler. The economic initiatives are gradually coming north. There seems to be more respect and more attention to the northern portions, especially when you get Charlotte Lake North, Highway 7. You know, our favorite thing is we grow rocks and trees and lakes and rivers. We don't grow fields and fields of crops and have massive dairy operations and so on, which is just a geographical or topographical issue depending where you are. And there are less people who live up here, and it's just a different mindset. But they're spending time up here now, and they're taking us more into account and so on. So it's a long way from being perfect, but it is an improvement. And they at least know that we're here now. So, and we're working on doctor recruitment as a township, and I've gone to great lengths to get them to include the Northbrook Clinic, the family health team in their thinking when they look at the various clinics, if they would stop at Charlotte Lake, family health team there. Whether they'll put it in or not, it won't be for lack of trying, whether it'll be their decision. So, anyway, that's where it is. Okay. Anything else on that kind of important topic? How about our favorite topic, short-term accommodations? What is Addington Highlands doing?
We have over the years produced a cottage rental kit, which is available to anyone who wants to purchase one at the township office. It includes the applicable bylaws, a waste site pass, a recyclable container, etc. And it's become quite popular. I can't tell you the numbers, Christine might know. But we certainly haven't had a lot of complaints seems to have mitigated the effects that seem to be pretty prevalent in other parts. I don't know what more to say about it. It's just a voluntary thing.
Corey, do we have one of those packages?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I just asked if we had a similar package.
We have educational materials on our website, as well as we do some education on our social media as well, but we do not have a packet. That's a pretty cool idea though.
Just to elaborate on what Reeve Hogg was mentioning, that was our approach. We thought we don't have a lot of resources in terms of bylaw enforcement. So if we could get the information out there, education, we were hoping would go a long way. And the cottage kit actually has served to a good purpose. It helped us with the waste site issues that we constantly had with people renting cottage properties. It provides them with a one-time pass to get into the waste site. It's taken by the custodians. And then, yeah, all the relevant details of the bylaws that they may want some information on, be burning bylaw, noise bylaw. Just they have the information on what contravenes that bylaw. So it seems to be working okay. We don't have a whole lot of complaints with that respect. Probably a couple of a year, Dave. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
We don't have any, right? Corey? What kind of complaints do we get?
Yeah, I say I don't have any formal complaints this year for our short-term accommodation. We have in the past had one or two noise complaints, and we've had this year noise complaints, but none for short-term accommodations. So I have not received any formal complaints at all.
Councillor Ingalls.
I co-authored a report on this about 3 years ago with somebody on Mazenot, who I think was from Addington Highlands.
John McClellan.
Forgotten his name, and somebody from Central. And I mean, we discovered that other townships that are bigger than ours have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on putting in staff. Like Prince Edward County is into their second iteration of such a plan, and still, that last report, they were only getting 50 or 60% compliance with this huge cost. I'm really surprised and pleased to hear that there's been a drop off in complaints. Maybe the information process has helped, but if we can dodge this bullet, I would say stay away from bylaws if possible.
Oh, you're gonna dodge this. Councillor Hoodle?
I'm not sure we dodged the bullet. I do know for a fact that it's very hard for neighbors to complain against neighbors. And that's the issue, right? I mean, yes, we're getting 0 complaints, but there's a lot of people out there that don't want to complain against their neighbors or on their lake, and that does happen. I know. It's just not a noise issue. It's really an environmental issue. You know, the overloading of the septic systems when you have 20 people in the house that's designed for 4. That's the kind of stuff we have to look at. I know previous council, this was a big thing. I don't know in the Highlands, but at the last municipal election, this came up a lot with lake associations and stuff like that. And I know that the different communities were working on it. John, you were on that committee. It just sort of stopped. And I think a lot of the people in the lake associations want to know what happened to it. There's been nothing resolved from it. So I'm not sure, you know, I just don't think it's going away. I mean, yes, we're not Wasaga Beach where it's constant, but we are seeing it. There's a lot of Airbnbs, and I'm not just picking on Airbnbs because there's a lot of good people who rent out there. It's just the one-offs that we have to be concerned about. And it makes it for a difficult bylaw if we are to create a bylaw, right? It's not an easy fix, but I don't think we should just let it go. I know that it was brought up at an environmental task force as an environmental issue. So we'll see where it goes from there.
One of the things I do when I meet with the Lake Association, not so much this year, but last year, we talked about how to make a confidential complaint. You know, you can call up if you want, But generally, you go to the website, you go here, and you type in your confidential complaint, and we will follow up. And people, yeah, and nothing. So they're either still don't want to complain about the neighbors, and there's definitely some of that out there. The downside of a confidential complaint is if we ever got into court, it theoretically could force you to reveal your source. But we're just not seeing it so much this year. I haven't heard at all anything about it this year, which is a little bit strange. Either everybody's complying or, they've just given up. We don't know. But there's going to be more and more. These things are extremely lucrative, especially when you get in Southern Ontario, up in the Collingwood, Thornbury area. You can get $2,000 a night for some of these. They're so good. So it's hard for one family or one group to afford. So they bring in 6 or 8 people. And all of a sudden, maybe it's a weekend, doesn't matter. That $2,000 becomes $200 or $300. That's a different story altogether. And it's party time. Anyway, that's where we're at. We're not doing it. It's on the things to do, but Chief Cuddy.
One of the contributing things may be this year has been such a wet year. From the fire service side, we haven't had a fire ban. And I know that's the one that we get really busy on is when we put a fire ban on, a lot of the short-term rentals don't know or don't care about the fire bans. But this year's been fortunate, and that may be one of the reasons why you haven't had any complaints.
Next year may be totally different. We'll have to see. We had a presentation about 2 or 3 months ago from the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. And she was talking about basically this area being the next Muskokas and people moving out of the city. She says, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they're coming. And you're going to have to think long-term. That was their position. So, and they would know because of their dams and water quality and water flows and so on. Okay, anything else on this? Renewable energy. Whose item is this? John? Oh, you want to speak on it? I know, yes, this is your baby.
Well, I'd be interested in knowing, we have a history of turning down a wind project. And my recollection is that Addington Highlands approved it at some scale. Is that wrong, Henry?
We supported the initiative of about what would be 6 or 8 years ago. There was another initiative that came by, maybe within the last year, that they found that there wasn't enough support within the community to proceed, so they didn't. I have since been approached by a solar energy consortium, but I haven't heard anything more from them.
Well, the current state of affairs is that the IESO, which is the planner for electricity, is seeking proposals from proponents to install a certain number of megawatts of so-called green energy throughout the province. And there's a deadline on that. I think it's a year from now. Proposals have to be in. But one of the rules is that it has to go to a willing township. So we perhaps are being already or will be approached about wind turbines, solar farms, and battery energy storage facilities. I've already been talking to a CEO in Kingston who's a green energy expert about battery energy storage. We don't have the right geography here, but for that kind of a project, what we do have is access to a high voltage transmission corridor, as you do. So, you may be approached in the next few months by a proponent because of your geography and your access to to high voltage power, which is where battery storage, for example, should go. But I would suspect if a wind energy proponent came back, we'd have the same community response we had 8 years ago. I don't think much has changed.
Any other comments? Councillor Hook?
Further, what Reeve Hogg said, on that last project that was proposed, the companies phoned individual councilors and they told us that there was not enough community support. So it did never come to council as a vote.
That's the win.
Yeah, that's the wind project. So for good or bad, that's the way it was. So.
Corey and I had a meeting with the chief of the Algonquins, or the Shabbat of Bajawan. And I asked her specifically about wind towers or wind turbines. She said, they don't have an issue with them. It's just like a hydro tower. What's the difference? And it provides a benefit. But that's not shared by a number of people. If you have one of these in your backyard, you may not appreciate it as much as it was in somebody else's backyard. That's kind of the way it comes down to it. So we're waiting to see where this goes. We've also had a presentation from, I forget who it was, but they talked about the future of energy, that we don't have enough electrical capacity. It's going to have to be expanded. John referred to this a bit. And they made the comment that since the Green Energy Act was withdrawn in 2018, there have been no new solar or no new wind farms built. And future looks like it's going to be nuclear. So, and the problem with nuclear is, where do you store the waste? And where does it travel? Until 41 is a traveling corridor right through. So, but there, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I've received, just recently, I just received a email from Renewable Energy System. So they were the ones doing 8 years ago, whatever. So now they want to talk to us again and show us a proposal. So I mean, I haven't contacted them. They want me to phone them, so I just haven't got around to it yet. They just saw it today, but yeah, they want to see how we feel about it now. But I mean, we did approve it last time.
You did?
Like, yes.
We haven't had that discussion here, right? But we did have something, didn't we? Wind farm back 2018, 17? Same one? Okay. Councillor Yance.
It's interesting because you'll have people that'll oppose the wind turbines, but yet they just welcome a cell tower anywhere, lights flashing, doesn't matter. So there are opposition to cell towers as well in our community. So it's just interesting how we all have our opinion and how things should work. And anyway, just to let you know, there are people that oppose the cell towers and there are people that will oppose the wind turbines.
On that, we have a tower on an abandoned gravel pit on the edge of our property, and it was sent out for public comment. They got over 200, the petition with over 200 signatures on it against the cell tower, of which 98% of the people came from elsewhere. Nobody lived in the area. They just didn't want it, you know, and they just blew by that. Let's forget it. So that's just typical. Okay. To be seen what happens. Okay, the other one is, the last item on here is the Mazenot Property Owners Association. We know they made they're approaching both councils about putting chemicals in the lake to get rid of Eurasian milfoil. And they've got a number of proposals. We know, I watched the Addington Highlands Council meeting. I saw your discussion. Thought it was fruitful, and they're coming back to us. I don't know when. So we'll see what they're going to do. So let's have a discussion about this. Councilor Regent.
So I'm happy to give you a little bit of history and background and some conversations I've had in the last few weeks. So I have a good relationship with the MPOA. Part of their lake is in part of my ward. And of course, I attend their AGMs and so forth. So unfortunately, this agenda, it kind of talks just about the request for us to issue a tax receipt, but if we could just like take a couple of steps back, I think what they're looking for, and they're going to come to council with this, but I'd like to just give you a little bit of information to consider. And I think what they're looking for at this point is they would like some joint acknowledgement from both townships that the invasive milfoil in their lake is in fact a problem, because I don't know if they feel like that's been acknowledged. And I think they'd also like, there's a couple of steps here. So I think they'd like a joint acknowledgement of that. I think they would like some letters of support that they can then take to the next level. They're fully appreciative of the fact that the lake belongs to the province. So they're looking for some local support that they can then take with them to the MPPs. And there's been a suggestion, which I think they will also bring to council, that if we can get through the first step together, then their next step would be, and they will try and do their best to make this happen. They will do this themselves, is a meeting with the two MPPs involved, our mayor, our reeve, and kind of take it one step at a time. I think the initial request for the tax receipts was a little bit premature. And so they've had an opportunity to talk to various individuals about what the proper steps should be. They would like they have a plan to work with the MNR and the Conservation Authority. This is not something they're doing tomorrow. There's some work to be done, but they would like us to have a discussion about how, as two townships, we can support them in their next step, which essentially is a letter of support that this is a problem. It's not just a problem on Lake Mazenau. There are people here who probably have it in their lake as we speak. There's definitely a lot of it in Scutamata. And so perhaps we could talk about how we would together support the MPOA to then go forward to recommend a meeting with the MPPs and yourself and Reeve Hogg.
Councillor Hermer.
Well, it's my understanding that the oversight and protection of our water bodies is a 3 government level responsibility, the federal, provincial, and municipal. Now, where's the other 2 partners in this discussion?
I'm certainly not an expert to answer your question, but I do believe that and please, if there's anyone sitting here who can correct me, I do believe that the lake itself belongs to the province, which is why the MPOA is requesting a meeting following a letter of support with our mayor, our reeve, and our 2 MPPs.
So if any of you have been following this on Facebook, which is just not the place to follow it, but it gives you an insight into what people are saying. People are concerned about a chemical going in the water. They don't know what the long-term effects are. Well, you never know what the long-term effects are, but it's been used successfully in several places in Canada. There are Canadian distributors for this or Canadian contractors for this. There are comments about all these property owners are trying to do is maintain or enhance the value of their property because the stuff's in front of them and impacts their boating and so on. Reeve Hogg and I were with Councillor Regent at the Mazenau Property or Lake Association's AGM, and you there too? I'm sorry, I missed that. And the representative from Bon Echo Park was there. And the association started off saying the park's in favor. But as the meeting went on, the park was, well, we think we're going to be in favor. Basically, I have a boss and the funds have to be allocated. And one of the biggest patches of this stuff is right in front of the park. So maybe they should be looking at, let's do a pilot, let's do that section and have the province pay for it. See if it works. Because it's not just Mazenod for us. We have Palmerston Lake. We've, Mrs. Saginaw, it's a spring-fed lake. It's in the lake. How did it get there? Probably by boats. We have shallower lakes. They pulled it out by hand. That didn't work. So this is the only thing that may work, but what are the downsides? And if you've got an opinion, everybody's going to hear about it, especially when you're on Facebook. So, you know, it's trying to decide what's the best way to go. I personally think the province should step up here and say, this is what it is, and this chemical is approved, and we'll do this, 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 and this. Councillor Region.
Agree with you, the province does have to do that, but they don't, you know, as a good friend of mine and I discussed this morning, they don't know what's going on here in Mazenod Lake. We have to tell them, right? We have to go to them. The M&R doesn't, they have enough to worry about. They don't know what our issue is with the lakes here that have this milfoil in them. So hence the reason that the MPOA is saying, let's take a leadership role and let's have our township support us to then take that to you and to Reeve Hogg and to the two MPPs, because we can't assume that they have any idea of what's going on here. If you'd like to see, so they had an information session, for lack of a better term. It was recorded via Zoom and it's on their website. I believe it's like mazenod.ca if I'm not mistaken. That entire discussion was recorded and posted on their website with experts who answered questions about what is Procellacor, how do you put this in the lake, what will it do to the animals, et cetera, et cetera. It was an excellent meeting. You know, some people have questioned, you know, why would you believe what they have to say? Well, you know, for example, Dr. Hassler, who is from, you know, our area, was on the call. He's a biologist. So I kind of think he knows what he's talking about. So if you'd like to listen to that information and listen to that call, Councillor Yanch and I were on that call as well. That's on their website, so you can see it there. But I highly recommend, and I don't know if this is the right terminology, but you know, I highly recommend that we provide some sort of support to the MPOA. They will not be the only group looking for support. They are in the spotlight, but they will not be the only group that is looking for our help.
Councillor Yash.
Thank you, Councillor Regent. I was going to bring that very point up. That was an excellent 2 hours. 2 hours is quite a long time to listen to 4 experts, but they were all very, they spoke at our level, how we should, so we could understand it. And I thought it was very, very good. And up till then, I was a little hesitant about this product being in our water, but hearing the 4 experts, I think that helped me decide how I would be going forth. Anyway, just to let you know, and thank you, it is on their webpage, and I think you should all listen to it because it's just excellent.
Councillor Hook.
I certainly wouldn't have a problem saying that the Eurasian milfoil is a problem in our lakes and support the MPOA on their efforts. However, it's I think in the presentation from Aaron Haggerty, he was looking for somebody to take the initiative and spearhead this program. And I think it all comes down to liability. No government organization wants to spearhead this program. And the MPOA doesn't really want to do it either. They'd rather have somebody else take it off their hands. So it comes down to liability. And when I just read that recent article in the Frontenac News that Jeff, I think, did a pretty good job research. He did find out it was one of the forever chemicals, and nobody really knows the long-term toxicity of it. So, I mean, who wants to step into that quagmire and, you know, take control of it? However, if the MPOA could take the initiative themselves, if they have Health Canada approval, they can get the applicator to get the right licenses and they can spray it themselves legally. So I think when you can't find government to take the initiative and wait around and for somebody to do something, do it yourself. I mean, that's what we did with the Gypsy Moss project on the lakes. We all ponied up, we gave the money, we got the job done, and they can do the same with the Eurasian milfoil, there's certainly enough people around Mazenal Lake or Scutamata, of which I'm one, that want to protect our asset, and we think that's the right thing to do. We have the money to do that, and there is the money around Mazenal Lake. And the argument saying that, well, we're not going to do it unless we get a charitable receipt, I think that's false. I have no weight in that at all.
Councilor Regent.
Sorry, to just repeat myself, I do believe how it's worded in this agenda was premature. I think that, this is a very sensitive issue. There's a lot of emotion tied to this topic. Unfortunately, Facebook has done it absolutely no justice whatsoever. I highly recommend you don't listen to anything that's been posted on there in a general sense. So I think what's happened here is that this was sort of the initial thought and ask. And I can confirm with you that there have been multiple conversations, multiple Zoom calls. There's been a lot of discussion with some very wholesome discussions that have occurred around, okay, let's take a deep breath and slow down and see what we need to do. So I caution you to not base your thought process on this, on what it says here. What they're looking for, because there is government funding that they can access. They're not asking for us to pay for something. There is government funding, but in order to access the government funding, they need to at least appear to have some government support. So the ask is, could we please have some support from our townships that our lake resides in to then go to the MPs to say, we would like you to acknowledge this issue, and could we then take our next step to some funding? And probably they could access a good portion of what that is going to cost them. So they're not asking for you to pay for the Procellacor to dump in their lake. And again, to Councillor Yanch's point, if you'd like to hear what that is about, please go onto their website and listen to the questions and listen to the answers. All they're asking for, and I don't know if maybe I'm not making myself clear. All they're asking for is, could we please have this group of people sitting here today support our effort to go to the next level? You acknowledge it's a problem. We're then going to take it to the next level. That's what they're asking for. Please don't base your opinion on what's written here.
Councilor Hoodle.
Yeah, I think it is important that we support them somehow. I mean, obviously we can't support them financially. But whether that's a letter supporting, I mean, this is an issue, just not in Mazenal. It's an issue in almost every lake in North Frontenac now. I just learned the other day that Palmerston has it in it, and I had no idea. I mean, I'm in Buckshot and we don't have it yet, but I'm sure that's going to change, right? So the unfortunate part of this is invasive species. So it's not the only invasive species that we have, and what's the next one, right? So but I think it's important that we realize that this will have an effect on the community in this area, right? How we use the lakes. And so a letter of support from both councils would, I think, be a first step. But we recognize there's a problem here, and where it goes, I'm not even sure where it goes from there, but just that we recognize there's an issue is important. I really like to know, I wasn't able to go to the NFLA meeting on Saturday, and I know this was discussed. So I don't know, Jerry, if you have any idea what.
Because I talked to Bruce Moore, he just asked about it, and Mazenal's coming to us with a presentation.
It would really be important in the NFLAA backs this, they should be representing all lakes within North Frontenac, just Mazenal. And I think there's a lake association body in Attica. Am I correct, or no? There isn't. Not like yeah. And then the other support they should be going after, and I'm sure they are, is FOCA, right? And see what FOCA has.
Hang on. Councilor Hermer.
The one problem I see when you just isolate one lake though for approved treatment, it's only a Band-Aid solution, because the other lakes are going to transfer that right back into the treated lake again. So it has to be a one-shot deal. Wherever there's an infected area, it all has to be treated. I remember back about 65 years ago, there was a severe outbreak of rabies. And the province stepped in, and they developed a I know, I don't know if it was province-wide, but I know it was involved Eastern Ontario. Every cat and dog had to be vaccinated. That was a successful program. They also dropped baited and treated food in the wild from aircraft to get the wild animals treated. That was successful. Had they only went part way, it would have never been eradicated.
So, yeah, my issue is I have no problem supporting this in general terms. But I don't want to lose sight that we have a whole series of lakes, especially the lake is shallow. This stuff will grow in up to 20 feet of water. So it's going to be really lake. It's what, 300 feet deep, and how deep is Mazenau? It's deeper than that. And, you know, but it's at the sides and then the small bays and so on. It's when it gets in front of the major use areas or in some of the channels. Big Gulf has it in a few places. I don't know if Cash has got it. It probably does. Palmerston's got it, and that's an oxygen deficient lake. Mississauga has it, and it's a spring-fed lake. So we just can't be seen as supporting one lake. We need to support the whole program. Okay, Councilor Regent, your turn.
So they're not asking for, they're asking for general support. That's all they're asking for. There are probably other lake associations that are waiting to hear what we have to say about this, for one. For two, they are fully aware that they need to involve some other stakeholders, which includes Bruce Moore. They're on that. There's so much work being done with this. I don't even know half of it, you know, and I've been privy to some of these conversations. So this is a general recognition of the massive problem in their lake with milfoil. And do we or do we not support them so they can take the next step? I don't imagine that the MPOA would go to a meeting with MPPs and not mention everybody else that has an issue too. Ideally, before that meeting happens, they will have engaged the other lake associations and the NFLAA so that they go there together as a united front. This is a general statement of support. We recognize you have a problem. We support you in your next step. I don't know how how much more clear I can be.
Councilor Thompson.
Yeah, it seems like we're kind of going around in circles here, chasing our tail, and to me, it seems quite simple. It's not going to cost any money and a letter of support. I think Stephanie's idea is, let's get the ball rolling on something. So let's get started somewhere and get on board and sign up, see what happens, see where it goes.
Tara, to you, we have, Mazenau's coming to us with a presentation, right? Or did they just pull it completely?
Yes, so they were scheduled to come Thursday at 5 o'clock, and they've asked to that the presentation be deferred.
Are they going to reschedule it? Do we know?
I don't know. They didn't tell us.
I think the intention is to reschedule it. They pulled the presentation for both councils because of the harassment online.
I would, before we make a decision on this, I'd like to hear from them. I think that's only fair. What are they actually asking for? They didn't go to Highlands either, did they? No. They just had the presentation. And I remember, Ken, you were talking about, well, how do you make a decision? We don't have all the information here and so on. And I think that's where we're at. I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's going to be everywhere. And we have to be general in our nature and recognize that it's not just one lake. I don't care who the leader is on this.
So perhaps Hillary Valancourt, who's the lake steward, could be asked for what she would like to see in the letter of support. I'm sure we could work with her for that.
Councilor Regent, I support what you're saying, but I'm not going to, I won't sign anything until the council as a group talks about it and says, this is what it is.
Agreed.
And I'd like to hear their presentation. That's my opinion, but I'm only one vote. Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Hoodle.
Yeah, I mean, a simple generic support letter, I don't think would be hard to, I agree, it would have to be passed by council. You know, what how we would control it, that's a whole different ballgame, but just supporting them, recognizing that this is a problem in our community.
Agreed. Councilor Good.
Yeah, I got no problem with a support letter, as long as it doesn't leave us liable for anything in the future. I don't, when I read there, they're not asking for any monetary donations from us, which we already did for Malcolm Lake. And that, as far as I know, it did not work out, putting the burlap down. So if they're not asking for monetary, and as long as the council is not liable, then I would vote on yes, a letter of support for it.
Okay. So you can arrange for them to come back and do a presentation for us?
I'd be happy to.
I'm sure you would. There you go. Okay. Was Addington Highlands have a similar impression of this, or are you not necessarily in favor of it? Like especially Mazenod, it's half in both townships, right?
Yeah. Well, we had expected them to come to the last council meeting and they canceled at the last minute, and I'm not sure what their intention is from there.
Okay. Counselor Hook?
Well, I was just gonna ask, Counselor Region, if you did get a sample request of what kind of support, I think we'd be appreciative to see that same letter so that we could support it as well. Something pretty generic.
Counselor Young?
Yes, I agree with Counselor Hook. I'd like to see that letter too, and or the wording of it anyway, before I make a final decision.
And I would also tend to agree with Councillor Good that we don't want to be in a position of responsibility because, like I say, this is a forever chemical and we're not sure what the long-term effects might be.
Counselor Hoodle?
And it's a big topic on the environmental task force. It's going to be a task that we'll be looking at too.
This might be one of these letters that goes out to all the municipalities. Because if you've got a lake that's 20 feet or less, you're gonna have it eventually. We don't have it now. Counselor Good?
Well, this milfoil is basically other, I'm not sure up northern Ontario, but across Muskoka Lakes and Lake of Bay, or not Lake of Bays, but Peterborough up there. It's all over the place. And like you said, all the lakes around here that anybody takes a boat in and out of basically has got it, like Gull, Cache, Mazenod. Well, Mazenod flows into Cache through the whole system. And whatever this, I'm gonna call it poison is, that is going into the lake in Mazenod, everybody that has got water, uses the water to drink out of down that system there from Mazenod, Marble, Georgia,
All the way
Cache,
to the Mississippi, or to the Ottawa River.
all the way through is gonna be drinking that poison, whatever it is. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'd like to know more about it. I think, but a letter of support, like I said, as long as we're not held liable for any part of this, then we can do that.
I think Stephanie's right. I have that particular Zoom connection on my system. I think maybe we can send that to everybody to take a look at. And
I actually have something that the MPOA board sent me that I'm happy to share with everyone here via email. You can click the link and you can watch the entire presentation and listen to all the questions and answers.
Well, that's what I was saying. So at least we're making a more informed decision of support and everything else and so on. I mean, it all sounds good until it's not. The island of St. Kitts had a snake problem, brought in mongoose. Now they have a mongoose problem. So, which is true. Okay, so anyway, is there anything else? Okay, I saw lunch coming in, so it should be a few minutes. So we're going to proceed to the adjournment portion of the meeting. Reeve Hogg, would you like to go first?
I can do. I guess I need a motion from council to adjourn. Councillor Yance, second by
I'll second it.
Councillor Thompson. Ready for the vote? Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Hook,
Yes.
Councillor Yance,
Yes.
we are adjourned. Thank you.
North Frontenac?
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council adjourns the meeting at 11:54 a.m. until September 12th, 2024, or at the call of the chair.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion? That motion's carried. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. It's been a great experience for all of us. We hope we all learned something and built some bridges, and we're looking forward to the next one. Lunch should be served, I would think, almost immediately.